Dear Anne Bonny, all the things I wish for seem to be things I'm ashamed to be wanting in the first place. So when I get them, I can't enjoy them. Have you ever had this problem? Have you ever run out your guns, intimidated a schooner into surrendering without a single shot fired? The passengers are wealthy and have hidden their gold in silly, obvious places. Have you ever won a good day's loot with little effort and then something strikes your sympathy? The tear the captain brushes from his eye, the way the countess's hands shake as she removes her rings. Suddenly, you feel like a villain, a bully. Suddenly, you feel like a pirate. The gold loses its sparkle and you refuse to join in the crew's drinking songs of victory. You drink your grog quietly, swallowing it quickly, trying not to taste it because it is good to be alive in what you are. So good, you are sorry for it. This is called A Small Madness. A small madness grows massive, monstrous when fed by love, becomes aware of itself, aware of its preferences, peculiarities, married for a year, then there was a desert, a breakdown of a car, a mind, a narrative. My mother fed my father's madness until it became its own institution, capable of holding meetings, passing bylaws. My mother fed my father's madness until it rumbled through the city like a public bus, the wrong bus, carrying her in a great arc away from her destination and then back to her point of origin. My father tried to end himself. So many times he was unsuccessful. He placed his hands around my mother's neck, tried to squeeze the air out of her. He was unsuccessful. I carry his name, Hyslop. It's a name that remembers. My mother doesn't carry it. I carry the madness it takes to tell. This is the last poem I'm going to read. It's called Anne Bonny Makes a Daredevil Escape Out of the History Books. Let me just say a couple of words about the historical context. So Anne Bonny is kind of both a historical person and a legend. Like there's a trial record that she existed and there's notices for her regressed, but a lot of her biography, like her early life and what happened to her after she was arrested, is entirely legend. So this is kind of about trying to tell her story while realizing that there were always going to be gaps and inaccuracies in it. So Anne Bonny makes a daredevil escape out of the history books. Official dispatches to privateers searching for bounties, court records. That's where Anne Bonny writes her autobiography. Daniel Defoe tries to write her story. Because women pirates are sorceresses, Anne Bonny transforms Defoe into a ghostwriter. Why else should the writer of a marooned mariner tale need a pseudonym to write a true crime book on villains of the high seas? His work is by all accounts impeccably researched, but in this instance he cannot cite his sources before Anne Bonny turns them into ghost sources. As he writes the names of the informants, the ink with which he writes their initials changes phase into the smoke that is wafting from her smoking gun. For a century, the peppered moths painstakingly inscribe on their wings the bits of the story Defoe is missing. When the moths lose interest in the role of flying archive, they replace their history book wings, speckled with names, dates, and cartography charts, with wordless wings of shadow paper. In hurricane force winds, history's faithful, flightless servants chase Anne's father through the rice fields of 18th century Charleston. They pursue him across the Atlantic back to Cork County, Ireland. When he disappears inside a law office, the historians know they have him. They stand outside his office window, beating silver spoons together until he agrees to a paternity test. Grading on a curve, the antiquarians review the man's short answers. Lawyer William Cormack passes. Finally, there is evidence. The historians are ready to grant Anne Bonny the enviable status of respectable, verifiable, historical person. The biographers plead with her. Give us a map with X marks the spot of your burial, and we'll give you a ticker tape parade. Give us a death certificate, and we'll consider a national holiday. Dear Anne Bonny, freeze. I intend to capture you alive. Strike a roguish pose. The camera hasn't been invented yet, but I've got my paints with me. I've set up an easel at the foot of this lifeboat. I only hope my strokes will be fast enough to keep up with the fresh gale that is carrying you away from me. I call out to her, throw me a line, I've changed my mind. I don't want an image. These rough seas make the production of artistic renderings near impossible anyway. I don't want an image. I only want to be with you. But it's too late. She's already disappearing into the marginal space between ocean and sky. Anne Bonny sails herself like a boat out of the stack of history books I'm holding in my arms. Thank you, everybody, for coming.